Everyone has a story about childhood, a story about relationships, about disappointments, about successes, story about things we did, about things that were done to us. And some stories contain incredible pain, grief, trauma, rejection. Some contain abuse and betrayal. The question isn't whether or not we have a story. The question is, what story are we telling ourselves about who we are because of what happened? What is our story about our story? Today, I want to talk about identity, the stories that we tell ourselves, and how God invites us into transformation. Welcome to the Christian Life Coach Podcast. I am your Christian life coach, Shanna, and I am so glad you're here today. So, before I go any farther in this topic, I just want to say that I am not about minimizing trauma. I'm not about pretending that painful things did not happen. This is not about just get over it. What happens, happens. Pain matters. Your pain matters. Loss, healing, it matters. And it happened. So I am not minimizing that. I am not trying to brush anything under the rug, sweep anything under the rug. Many people need counseling, coaching, support, community, and time to heal from things that have happened in the past. So the goal of today's episode is not to deny pain, it's to ask, does my pain get the final word about who I am? So here we go. Things happen, events happen, there are circumstances that happen. There are the facts of what actually happened, and then we interpret them. Something happens, and then we assign meaning to that. For example, we may get criticized, and we make that mean I'm not good enough. I'll never measure up. Or maybe your husband asks for a divorce, and you make that mean I'm unlovable. Nobody stays. Maybe you experience some kind of failure, and your interpretation is I always mess things up. I am not capable. The event is real. It happened. And the interpretation of the event often gets taken on to us as our identity. So, what meaning have you attached to the hardest parts of your story? What are those hard parts of life that actually happened? And what is the meaning that you've attached about yourself because of them? And the event may or may not have been of our own choice. It may have been something that we had control over or something that we had no control over. But over time, we will begin living from the meaning that we attach to the event. Not that the event happened, but the meaning that we have attached to it. There is a difference between what happened to you and who you are. Some people within the sound of my voice truly were victims of a situation. Something wrong happened, something harmful happened. And naming that matters, acknowledging what happened is so important. But you are only a victim in that experience. And I take that back. I don't want to say only. Victim describes who you were in that experience. It was never meant to become a permanent identity. And some examples of this might be I was abused. And the identity that you take on is I am broken. Someone abandoned me becomes I am unwanted. Someone rejected me and I believe I am unlovable. One statement describes an event and the other describes the identity that has been taken on because of the event. And your identity drives everything. You are more than the worst thing that has happened to you. If identity drives our behavior, if we act from who we believe that we are, then we need to pay attention to the identities that we are carrying around, that we are living from. The stories we tell ourselves become self-fulfilling. That is the whole self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe something to be true about yourself, you will make it true. And many of us carry around identity statements, not even below the surface, not even surface level. We might not even be saying it out loud or thinking it consciously, but it's hovering under the surface. It's having an impact. I always quit. I never follow through. I'm bad with money. I'm lazy. I'm anxious. I'm not enough. Nobody chooses me. I don't matter. I can't change. One of my clients recently uncovered the belief that she's an afterthought. And these statements, when repeated, and again, subconsciously or consciously, when they are repeated, they start sounding like facts. But they are not facts, they are interpretations. And when we believe these stories as though they're fact, we start thinking from them. It's how we view the world. We feel from them. We act from them. We create results from these stories that we tell about ourselves that aren't even necessarily true. And again, back to the creation cycle, the way that we think, our collection of thoughts, our thinking, our beliefs generate how we feel inside our body, and our feelings drive the actions that we take, the way that we behave, and those actions and behaviors create the results that we experience in life. So identity sits underneath all of that. Our identity is what we believe to be true about ourselves, what we're thinking on repeat, generating those same emotions on repeat, driving those same actions or inactions on repeat, resulting in our experience of life. So, another question. What identity statement have you been rehearsing over and over and over? And it might take time to uncover it. Might take some thought, maybe some journaling. And this, my beautiful friend, is where the Bible offers us all the hope, because God specializes in redemption. Romans 12:2 tells us to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, you are a new creation. The old has gone and the new has come. You are a new creation in Christ. Romans 8:28, and this is my one of my core foundational verses that I remind myself of all the time. Romans 8:28 says that God is working all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. That's you. That's me. And God isn't telling us to erase our stories, to pretend like it never happened, because God is in the redemption business. God redeems our stories. And redemption isn't pretending, it's not minimizing. Redemption is God bringing healing and wisdom and compassion and purpose and growth from those places that once only held pain. God can redeem what he never wanted for you. And I just said it today in a call. Sometimes people will say, like, it was supposed to happen that way because it happened that way. And I don't know that I believe that. I don't think that I do, because we are in a fallen world. Sin happens. Things happen that grieve God's heart. And like the story of Joseph in the Old Testament, he tells his brothers, what you meant for harm, God has used for good. That was God redeeming several situations where Joseph was a victim. But he did not live as a victim. He lived in his redemption and overcoming. And I just read a book. It's so interesting how things work together. And I truly believe that God is confirming when we are on the right path. And I just came across, I'm an avid reader. I just came across a book this past week that is an older book by Karen Kingsbury, who I've read a ton of her books, and I had never seen this one before, and it's called Divine. And it is, it was inspired by the life of Mary Magdalene in the Bible. When Mary met Jesus, she had 7 evil spirits in her, 7 demons, and Jesus rebuked the demons and released her from them. And Mary went on to follow Jesus to help fund his, excuse me, help fund his ministry. And she was there at the tomb. She suffered all kinds of things, and she did not stay in that victimhood. Her story was redeemed, and she went on to do amazing things. And in this book called Divine, the main character, Mary, goes through horrific abuse, neglect, like terrible childhood situations. And I believe that Karen Kingsbury had like seven specific things that she experienced, just like the 7 evil spirits that Mary Magdalene was delivered from. And I mean, the things that this girl went through it was horrific. And when she comes back to her faith in Jesus and puts her trust in Jesus, she is absolutely transformed. And her past didn't disappear. And I know this is a book, but it was, I mean, I'm sure there are stories just like this in real life. Um, her past happened. It didn't disappear. She didn't forget about it. She still had all of those memories, but her identity changed. She wasn't focused on the things that happened to her. She focused on her rescue and her rescuer. She focused on her redeemer rather than the painful story. And she focused more on who she was becoming than who she had been. Same woman, same history, different identity. And I truly believe that God offers that to every single one of us. So, who are you becoming? And maybe the question to be asked isn't what happened to me, but who am I becoming because of what God is doing in me? Am I becoming someone who trusts God? Am I becoming someone who follows through? Am I becoming someone who believes truth? Am I becoming someone who believes, who lives from my identity in Christ? Am I becoming someone who lets God redeem my story? And if God redeems it, the idea is not to keep taking it back, to live in the redemption of that story, which takes effort. It takes renewing your mind. Your past may explain parts of your story, but it does not determine your future. It does not determine who you are and who you can be. So I have some journal prompts, and I'll also put these in the show notes. What story do I most often tell about my life? What labels have I accepted about myself? Which of those labels came from painful experiences? Do those labels align with what God says about me? And that is so important. Who do I believe God is helping me to become? And I think you'll find such clarity. And maybe I pray that you find relief and you find a new way to tell your story. Unless it's a great one. I mean, if it's a great story, then keep it for sure. Okay, that is what I have for today. And I'm a little bit nervous to even say this, but my plan is that throughout this month of June, each week I'm going to have a guest or two on the podcast. We'll see how it shakes out. And I want you to hear from women that I know in my life who have walked through difficult circumstances, experienced hardship, have believed lies, who have wrestled with their own identity. And they are women who are learning to renew their minds and become who God created them to be. Not perfect women, not women who have arrived and have everything in life figured out, but women who are becoming just like you and just like me. I am a work in progress, just like you are. And in closing, your story matters. And the story that you tell about your story matters because that becomes your identity. So you want to make sure that it's a good story. Your wounds are not your identity, and your past is part of your story, but it does not get the final word. God does. So go get those journal prompts from the show notes. Please make sure to subscribe, like, follow, whatever it is on the platform that you're listening or watching from. And if you are willing, I would love if you're especially on Apple Podcast, or I don't know if you can do it on Spotify or not, but a 5-star review would be amazing. Comments are always welcome. Share with a friend who you think might appreciate this. All of that helps to push the show out to more listeners. And I so appreciate you doing that. Thank you so much for being here. And remember that life coaching is life changing, one renewed thought at a time.